what do you think of client-side templating in terms of performance and so forth?
If I understand the question, we had this pendulum swing where we would do Web 1.0, and every time the user wanted to do something, our backend C code would stitch together a bunch of HTML and send it down, and that got to be really slow, and it's a jarring user experience. And the pendulum swung way over here, where everything, I call it the Gmail problem, where to get 1.5K of inbox data, I have to download 500K of JavaScript, and it takes 20 seconds to see the stuff. And it's just like, I know it can be done faster than that, and I think a lot of people are settling, where we should, which is I'll use some templating system that can run on the back end and the front end, and Node with JavaScript is a very good example. And so, but there are other templates that can work similarly. And if it's the user's first request, I'm going to, instead of sending back a boatload of JavaScript and have them wait, I'll do it very quickly on the server, send back HTML, which the browser can render very quickly, but then I'll also download all the scripts and functionality so that once the user starts clicking on stuff, I can just do JSON and do all the rendering client side. But I don't have a lot of experience with the different template engines that are out there doing that.
So one bit of warning about that. ES6 will probably have its own templating system, which will be radically different than everything else. And will also be significantly better because it will be built in the language, which means all the templating stuff you're doing now, you're going to want to trash it. Yeah, seriously.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Remember we talked about 2 steps forward and 1 step back? You learn a lot.
When will that be available?
Well, that depends. Do you have to run on IE6? 7? 8? 9?
No IE.
Oh, then you're golden. Yeah, so probably within 2 years it should be fairly universal as long as you don't have to be on IE.
So my question is very much along the lines of the other gentleman, but it's more like a philosophical question. It seems to me like the web code that we write these days, the lifetime on it is very less. So there are always much better ways of doing things, and there are always much better frameworks, and just like what he said, it seems to me like there's a better MVC framework that we would use that will be much easier to write code in. So is it because JavaScript is still evolving as a language to support MVC kind of frameworks and doing object-oriented programming, or is it the 21st century way of doing things? Is it going to always be changing? What do you think? It's to both of you, it's not just to one.
I think it's because Doug's going to have a longer answer. He always does. So I'll go first. I think it's because everything is still really new, especially in the mobile space and with performance and a lot of other things. I mean, look, we didn't know about Ajax until 5 years ago, 6 years ago. JavaScript on the server, are you kidding me? Like, everything is changing so fast. And, but I will give a long answer. I was at this thing at this country club I belong to, where they invite the men up, what do you call it? And we're tasting all these different kinds of sherry and port and stuff like that. And this guy is talking, and he's very eloquent. He's a sommelier, or however you say that. And he's waxing on and on about these ports and where they come from and the barrels. And I'm going like, wow, this guy, and he was a good speaker. And I'm like, wow. This guy, this is so cool. He knows everything about sherry and port. And I realized that it was because nothing had changed for 100 years. And he just had to sit down and memorize everything. And then he was golden. And I thought, wow, how awesome would that be? And then I stopped. I said, wow, that would really suck. I'm kind of glad that things change every day. It makes work really interesting. But anyway, I think that's the reason why, is because, yeah, everything is we're still learning and it's changing.
Yeah, but what's changing fastest is our ambitions. We're trying to do things with the web and with the net that weren't anticipated in its design. And so we're struggling with that. And most of what Steve has done is figure out a way to make the browsers do things that they weren't intended to do, and to make them do it better than they were intended to do. JavaScript has been evolving more slowly than most of the other languages because it's in the web, and in the web you don't get to choose what version you're running with. It's really hard to upgrade that language, and so it's moving slowly. The other thing that's happening with JavaScript is it's built on a paradigm, or two paradigms that are not well understood: functional programming and prototypal programming. And so most of the people who are writing in JavaScript don't understand or appreciate those, and so they're trying to find another way. And JavaScript is so incredibly powerful that actually works. It's suboptimal and it's harder and more problematic, but it actually works. My evangel has been, if you actually learn the language, it gets easier. But most of you aren't doing that, so we're doing it the hard way, and we're getting away with it mostly.
So come to the mobile apps, that the HTML5 or hybrid mobile apps, the number is increasing and it's harder to update. And then there are a lot of API calls in them, and there is maybe no tools like the web page test. So is there will be a more SPOF or different SPOF on these mobile apps? Yeah.
You mean for native apps?
Not native, but the HTML5 or hybrid apps, like the old Facebook app.
Yeah. Well, I think there's, front-end SPOF still exists. I think maybe it's a little reduced because I think people just put fewer less third-party crap on their mobile pages. But Business Insider is, if they build a mobile version of their website, I guess if they build they'll still have the same problem. If they've got the widgets, LinkedIn and Facebook-like and stuff like that built into their mobile app, and it times out, it's still going to be a front-end SPOF.
Yeah, so there would be, the tool support like the web page test, things like that. And if there's a wrapper, then maybe worse. I don't know.
Yeah. You could look at it. Web page test does have iPhone and Android, so you can do some work there. And it also has a scripting language. So even if you have a single page mobile web app, you could actually walk through a couple actions and see if SPOF exists. But certainly on the initial loading, you could see if SPOF exists, front-end SPOF, using web page test.
Yeah.
How big a boat anchor is IE these days? What is its market share? How is it changing? And is there any chance of expediting, lifting it off the floor?
That's a really good question. So IE is declining. It's not declining as fast as we'd like it to. IE10 is actually very good. It's actually very, very good. But it's only in previews at this point. So It's going to take a while for it to get into the market. There are still large communities where IE6 still dominates, and that is still a huge source of pain. And the thing I've been trying to advise the industry on is screw them. It's just so hard, so painful to have to support IE6. We should just cut them off.
Well, I mean, you might say that about a toe that the doctor might say or might not be able to say, but
Well,
I mean, if it's a big enough toe.
we don't actually know that. There was an experiment that I wanted to run at Yahoo while I was there that I never managed to get done, and that was to measure the revenue per user per browser.
Yes.
And my prediction was that we were actually losing money supporting IE6. In higher support and failed ad delivery and all those things. But I never got the data, so
the basic model is until they get a new PC, forget it.
Yeah.
Well, the definition of forget it, kind of is, it's not a black and white. And
I mean, why would they ever upgrade until they get a new PC if you're grandma?
Right. So the thing I proposed a few years ago was all the major websites in the world pick one day and date where if someone comes to us on IE6, we send them to a page that says, here are 5 other browsers you can load for free. Please do that and come on back.
Right.
Okay. We were never able to get that done.
Okay, too bad.
Yeah.
So Yahoo, I think Yahoo started it was, grade A browsers, grade B browsers. I know that's what we do at Google. And it's not that we just make it so it doesn't work in IE6. We just say, this new capability, this new feature, it's not worth it to make it work in IE6. And so stuff still works, you just don't get all the features. So it's not like, they just can't do anything. They just don't get the latest and greatest.
Anyway, two questions. First question is, what's the best strategy to update JavaScript on your page? I've seen several schemes, and they're all they're like trick schemes.
You mean like you pushed out a version of main.js and then you made a change to it?
Yeah, and the user needs to get that change.
The best thing is to change the name, call it main2.js.
Okay. Second question, very brief. Okay, this is more for Doug. What's the fastest server-side scripting language?
Who cares? Because it turns out mostly we're not constrained by the programming language. You're constrained by architecture. And so who cares is, I think, probably the right answer.
The other thing from a performance perspective is we know that you could drop the server-side time to 0 and most people would never notice.
Yeah.
So whether you use something that's twice as fast as something else doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so the key insight in performance is always measure before you cut, right? And it's amazing how many people are trying to optimize stuff without looking to see where the hotspots are. You could theoretically make the fastest possible web server by writing it all in assembly language. Probably isn't going to work. You're probably going to end up with something that's really slow. A scripting language will probably give you more leverage in surprising ways because you get better control over the architecture, over the application. So don't micro-optimize, or as Knuth says, premature optimization is the root of all evil. All right, so let's all thank Steve.